So we spent a couple days last week with the guys from Oak Highlands Brewery. Not only were they kind enough to let us host the party for the launch of our bus in the brewery, but they also offered to brew us a special beer to help us celebrate the bus finally hitting the road. I sat down and had a conversation with some of the brewers to talk about what the beer should taste like, and we settled on a Texas Red Ale. From there, I let brewers Brandon and JD, where's JD? Oh, there he is. Translate our conversation into the recipe for an actual beer. We started out with the grain bill, a mixture of grains to make the color and the taste right. It's a pretty good sign when the grain tastes good. Real good. From there, we pour it into the grain mill. It grinds up the grains and basically pumps it into this big grain thing. It's called a grain holder.
So all the milled grain that we just milled is sitting in this grist case right here. So we're about to open it up and collect it so we can start the mashing.
Grist case is what it's called. So from here, Brandon and I haul the milled grain over to where we will mash in, which means mixing the grain with hot water. So once the water reaches 172 degrees, JD will pour in the grain while Brandon stirs. This whole process makes everything smell straight up like grape nuts. The grain mixed with the water also tastes like grape nuts. This stuff. And we start the Vorloft.
So that basically means we're getting all the sugar and all the wort out from the bottom of it. And basically what we're doing with the hot water is we're pushing all the sugar water down to the bottom and getting it over here, making sure we get it all out. So that's a good sign.
So from there, we pump the wort, which is the sugary, grainy liquid, into another kettle to boil. And while that's heating up, we move on to hops. Hops are another important flavoring agent. They add to aroma and give it that good bitter taste you want in a beer. There's a bunch of different ways brewers can add hops. These are whole leaf hops, and sometimes they're pressed into pellets. We use 3 different kinds of hops in this beer. We use Cascade, Liberty, and Mount Hood. Sometimes you can put them in a tea bag, or you can also just dump them in.
Putting in 5 ounces of our Mount Hood hops.
Yes.
While it's boiling, Brandon and JD do a bunch of science-y things, like measure stuff in a refractometer and use a flux capacitor to make sure the ions are aligned. Straight up geeking out. Now at this point, we run the beer through a heat exchanger. Now this is a very important step because the wort at this point is still very hot and it needs to be cooled down so that when we add the yeast, they won't burn up and die. I got to taste the wort. It's super good, sweet. It tastes exactly like the milk after you just eat a bowl of grape nuts. After adding the airlock, the beer will sit in this barrel for a week. It'll be the longest week of our lives. But make sure to meet back up with us at Oak Highlands Brewery on February 5th to taste how the beer turned out, check out our bus, and celebrate hitting the road with the coolest stuff in Texas.